Planet X, Am I Going to Die? Animation Visual. One of my favorite classes in college was term paper writing. I enjoyed digging up the facts and then presenting them in a coherent manner. That's what we're going to do today. Whereas all my other videos about Planet X really did not take a comprehensive look at the mountain of evidence, this one will. And I think it will blow you away. It will give you something to talk about, but you're not going to remember all the things I have said, and taking notes is too laborious. So send me a message, and I'll send you the script to this video. Ask for the animation video. You have never seen any video on Planet X that is as comprehensive as this one, with rock-solid evidence. Those who have set up a conglomerate enterprise to debunk Planet X go about 1 micron deep with their facts, and they know nothing, whereas I go 7 miles down to the hot magma to dig up what I need to lay out a coherent and cogent argument for my case. And there is no debunker in the world who can match my skills. Not even Popular Mechanics, that rag magazine, with their 9/11 debunking that makes the editor look like a scientific fool. That guy wouldn't know the truth if it was World Trade Center building number 7 and it fell right on him. He's a man of science. He and Al Gore should set up a conglomerate. Call it Gore and Bohr and Little More. 2 whores selling out the citizens for $1. 2 clowns in suits trying to match my skills in laying out a solid case of concrete evidence for your consideration. I'm not the best in the world. There are many who are better. Jim Mars from Fort Worth, Texas, has been an investigative reporter for more than 30 years, a New York Times journalist and best-selling author, who is a conspiracy theorist like me and a lot of other smart people. I could not do what I saw him do in this video, which I'm going to tell you about briefly. I write my scripts, I review them 25 times, and when I think they're ready for production, I record them. Jim Mars, on the other hand, flips on the camera, talks for 10 minutes about conspiracy and 9/11, and completely destroys the official version of 9/11, the inside job that's being discovered as a fraud by more and more Americans every day. The rest of the world already knows it was an inside job. If you think conspiracy theorists are crazy, you need to see this video. Jim Mars is not crazy. He's in his late 60s and he's sharper than 99.999% of Americans. Americans have been clueless until now, but like the JFK assassination, you can't keep the secret forever. Click on this link and bookmark this concise presentation. A separate window will open and you can come back here to continue. Then you can watch the other one later. This video really deserves your attention. When the slave masters start killing us, Jim Mars will probably be one of the first shot or gassed, whatever they plan to do. They built gas chambers. They probably intend to gas us. It would please me to be number 2 in line, but I have a long way to go. There are people like Jesse Ventura, Alex Jones, Charlie Sheen. They will all be killed long before me, I believe. It is my dream to do as much damage as Jim Mars is doing on their official cover-up lie about 9/11. My videos are the best I can do. And whereas your fascist Nazi government won't answer your questions because they are guilty, I'll answer all your questions and I'll respond to all of your comments. Be polite, because if you're hostile to me, you might trigger a routine response. I revoke your visitation rights. If this video and this channel are not for you, leave. There's no reason for you to stand around, watch my videos, and then tell me how stupid I am. Bible thumpers and those who are hostile are nothing but trouble, and I weed them out faster than you can say praise Jesus. The Hindus and the Buddhists don't annoy me like this. Why is the Jesus crowd so interested in converting other people? Why don't they just practice their religion and leave us alone? They got to dump their scripture like this is a landfill or something. They have been taught that before they die, they have to get right with God. This is a con job. What does it mean to get right with God? Giving money. You're being conned out of your money. Yesterday, someone told me that when these Bibles were rewritten and translated, they left a lot of stuff out and they put in new stuff, and this tithe stuff is all new. This is not the original Old Testament. I don't know if that's true because I don't read those books. I find science much more interesting. But since people think they're dying as a result of Planet X, they got to talk about Jesus. And that's not enough that they want to talk to Jesus. They got to make me talk to Jesus. Or they got to make their scriptures talk to me. I don't want these scriptures. I want to conduct an investigation of Planet X. And I don't want to be blamed because the evidence is there. The evidence was there on the O.J. Simpson trial, and I didn't commit any murders. The evidence was there in the 9/11 murders, and I had nothing to do with that. That was a group of insiders who did that, and their orders came from the big boss in Europe, this secret permanent government that you guys are beginning to suspect is there. You're beginning to see that the president is just a puppet and that Congress is obsolete. And more, they don't even read the bills. They just sign them because they were told to sign them by their bosses. You think you are their bosses? You don't even elect them anymore. They're appointed to those positions. Have somebody slap you and wake up to the truth. That's what's really going on. And Jim Marrs is on top of it. He is a conspiracy theorist like me. Planet X is not a conspiracy. It's just evidence. And remember, I have not reached my conclusion yet. I'm not sure there's a Planet X, but I'm sure there's a lot of evidence to support it. I'm looking at the evidence just like you would, and when I started to prepare for this video and I made a list of all of the evidence, I was astounded. The list keeps growing and growing and growing. I started out with 2, and as you're about to hear, it was expanded. The evidence supports a Planet X, and the evidence says that 9/11 was an inside job and the secret government looks guilty as hell. And you have to ask why they stopped answering our questions. These people operate behind the scenes, they rig the elections, and you think you've elected one of their Nazis and put him in the White House so he could play golf and they could confiscate your wages to pay his expenses. He's supposed to represent you, and who does he represent when 70% of us don't want a health control bill where the government has access to your veins? And Obama rammed that through, and now you have to pay for it. You didn't want it, but now you have to pay for it. And whereas 70% of us were against it at the time they were ramming it down our throats, all of us are against it now. Virtually the entire country is against it. They don't care what you want. They're going to implement whatever they want, and if you don't like it, you can leave. And there are plenty of people who will tell you, if you don't like America, leave. Well, what about changing America? Should some of us stick around to make sure it goes in the right direction? This health care control bill is like a hypodermic needle under your skin, and now it's law. They forced it on us like a rapist. Nobody likes getting raped. The permanent government is not your friend. They operate with control everywhere with a cloak of secrecy on everything. They only tell the people what the people need to know. Never the truth, always propaganda, and every law is a lie. The Patriot Act is not patriotic, and anyone who voted for it is not patriotic in Congress. The health care bill is anything but. They're not looking out for your health any more than the Center for Disease Control is looking out for your health. These are conspiracies to kill you, and any superficial investigation will quickly reveal that. Look up Codex Alimentus if you want to know what's really going on. The secret government is your worst enemy. So if you're expecting an announcement that Planet X is what's causing all the abnormal stuff, which I'm going to get into in a minute in the context of this video, forget about that announcement. You might as well be waiting for the announcement that the Federal Reserve is returning the printing of our nation's currency back to Congress, and that we're returning to sound money backed by precious metals. In the vernacular of the common man, it ain't gonna happen. So you might as well do your own research to find out what's up with Planet X. And this video is going to provide you with dozens of facts, concrete evidence that something is going on. This video will give you many things to think about. And when I get done with you, you're going to be a different person. You're going to undergo a metamorphosis and look at life quite differently. You're going to develop your thinking on Planet X. I'm going to show you an animation that will probably frighten you if you understand it. And it's very simple. It just shows an object in a gravitational field and the behavior of that object. The frightening part is the tail that was observed by the insider that had the CIA buddies with the Hubble Space Telescope has, in his words, trillions of particles of debris, and he said the average one weighs 70 pounds. An iron rock that weighs 70 pounds. And if all of these objects are behaving like this animation that I'm going to show you, some of them are bound to land on Earth. And I hope the one that's 500 miles in diameter does not land on Earth, because that would be catastrophic. As if a jillion 70-pound iron rocks is not. Now, this animation is very easy to understand, but for those of you who drink more than 8 fluoridated glasses of the government water each day, you might as well turn off your computer, because there's no way in hell that you're going to be able to comprehend any of this. This is all way over your head. For the rest of you intellectuals and critical thinkers, let the show begin. Everyone wants to know if they're going to die, and they want me to tell them where the safe places are. I don't know the safe places, and I'm not even sure that you need a safe place. Is there a Planet X? Let's start with a tabula rasa. If there is a Planet X, then that explains many things. The existence of a Planet X with a mass 23 times that of Earth and a size that's 4 times Earth's would explain why we're having so many earthquakes of magnitude 6 or higher. But the aliens are telling us that we're going to have earthquakes with a magnitude of 15 on the Richter scale, and very few people understand what that means. And if you're willing to pause to think about that for a minute, let me make that idea much clearer to you. What is the largest earthquake we have ever had? You don't know, and I didn't know either when I started making this video. That's why I like to do term papers. I learn so much. I'm not just another dirt bag. The largest earthquake ever recorded was an 8.9 off the coast of Chile. Do you know when that happened? It was 1960, according to this graph. I found it online. This will help you understand the Richter scale. Notice that it's a logarithmic scale, and that means geometric progression. In other words, we're taking a number and we're repeating it and multiplying. 10 to the 1 power is just 10, but 10 squared, or to the second power, is 10 times 10, that's 100. So we go from 10 to 100. Now what's the next number in the sequence? If the exponent goes from 1 to 2, and then from 2 to the next number is 3. 10 to the third power, it's 1,000. 10 times 10 times 10. The Richter scale is giving you the exponents. So an earthquake of 3 and an earthquake of 6 leads you to think that the 6 is double. That's not correct. It would be 10 to the third power. A 6 is 1,000 times more powerful than a 3. 1,000 times. 10 times 10 times 10. When you go from a 3 to a 4, that's 10 times more powerful. A 4 to a 5 is another 10 times more powerful. That makes 100. and from a 5 to a 6 is 1,000 times more powerful. The Richter scale is a measurement of the energy released, and that's a measurement of the amount of rock that's moved and the distance that it's moved. That tells you how much energy was in that earthquake. Let me read you something from misunderstanding.wordpress.com. Misunderstanding has an H between miss and understanding. I don't know why. Here's what that page says. Size and frequency of occurrence. There are about 500,000 earthquakes each year. About 100,000 of these can actually be felt. Minor earthquakes occur nearly constantly around the world in places like California and Alaska, in the U.S., as well as in Guatemala, Chile, Peru, Indonesia, Iran, and Pakistan. The Azores in Portugal, Turkey, New Zealand, Greece, Italy, and Japan. But earthquakes can actually occur almost anywhere, including New York City, London, and Australia. Large earthquakes occur less frequently, the relationship being exponential. For example, roughly 10 times as many earthquakes larger than a magnitude 4 occur in a particular time period than earthquakes larger than magnitude 5. 10 times. So now they're telling us that as we go up the scale from 4 to 5, there are 10 times as many. It's not only 10 times more powerful, but there are 10 times as many 4s as there are 5s. When people mention a 4, I laugh. These are not significant earthquakes. And they think it's a big deal. Oh, there was an earthquake today. It was a 4. Well, that's a truck rolling by. Not a big deal. An 8.9 is the biggest deal we ever experienced. Now, how much more powerful is an 8.9 compared to a 4? Well, it's 10,000 times plus the log of 0.9, which is almost 10, probably 8 or so. So whatever number you get, you multiply it by 8 instead of 10. An 8.9, it would be 10 to the 8th power, and then 10 to the 0.9, which is about 8. So it's 8 times 10 to the 8th. The United Kingdom has a low seismicity, very few earthquakes there. It has been calculated that the average recurrences are an earthquake of 3.7 to 4.6 every year, an earthquake of 4.7 to 5.5 every 10 years, and an earthquake of 5.6 or larger every 100 years. This is an example of the Gutenberg-Richter law. Well, I don't know why they didn't name it the Gutenberg-Richter scale, but Gutenberg got dropped, and it's just called the Richter scale. The page says what I had said. Each number increase is 10 times the energy. So we're talking about exponents of 10. So when you go from 6 to 7, that's 10 times as much energy. 10 to the 6th is 1,000,000, and 10 to the 7th is 10 million. And the difference is 10 times the energy. Now if you go from a 7 to an 8, that's 10 times as much energy again. A 9 earthquake is 10 times that of an 8. I've never heard of an earthquake with a magnitude 10, and the graph says they don't exist. A 9 earthquake will destroy just about everything within a few miles of the epicenter, and I would think that we don't really need a 10. I'm very happy with 9. We could cut off the scale there and not have 10s, if you don't mind, because a 10 is 10 times the energy of a 9, and we're already all dead. By the time we get to 11, it's 100 times as much energy as a 9, and it's getting ridiculous. Who could survive an earthquake with a magnitude of 11? If we're all dead with a 9, then an 11 is overkill, in my opinion. So 12 comes along, and that's 10 times as much energy, or 1,000 times the energy of a killer 9. And who needs this number on the Richter scale? There's nobody around to record it. After that earthquake of a 12, we don't need 12 on the Richter scale. Take it off. If 13 is your unlucky number, you're in luck. They have a 13 on this scale. Why? I have no idea. A 13 earthquake would be like someone putting you in your car and then hurling you off the steepest, rockiest side of a mountain that is several miles to the bottom. Who needs it? And we're still only at a magnitude of 11. We still have 14, which is 10 times that, and we have 15, which is 100 times that. Can you imagine anything that's 100 times worse than throwing your car off the side of a rocky mountain that's several miles to the bottom? Why do we need anything worse than that? So, a magnitude of 15 is an earthquake with 1,000,000 times the energy of a 9. And remember, 9 is enough to kill everyone within a certain distance of the epicenter. So why do we need 1,000,000 times that force? It would be like dropping 1,000,000 hydrogen bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima when one is sufficient to kill everyone within 5-mile radius. The reason that I'm going through this detailed explanation is so you fully understand the numbers on the Richter scale. People hear the numbers, but they don't really comprehend what it means. I hope it's clearer now. When I read that the aliens were predicting earthquakes of a magnitude 15, I didn't really understand what it meant. And I consider myself mathematically inclined. The energy and force of a magnitude 9 is a killer, and a 15 is 1,000,000 times as much energy. And it's easy to calculate. If you write on the paper 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, then put 10, 100, 1,000, and so on, you'll reach 1,000,000 when you get to the 15. You can do it in your head. It's 10 to the 15th divided by 10 to the 9th. You subtract exponents. 15 minus 9 is 6, and you get 10 to the 6th. That's 1,000,000. 10 to the 6th power is 1,000,000. Silly people send me comments and they say, if there's a 15, I'll just hide under my bed. These people think like children because nobody has ever taken them by the nostrils and led them over to the math to show them how much more powerful a 15 is than a 9. I lived in California for 27 years before moving to Arizona to get to what I thought was a safer place after hearing about Planet X. I found out I'm not safe here. Nobody is safe anywhere, really, so forget about safety. If Planet X is real and Jesus isn't, we're all dead meat. The tidal wave that could hit the West Coast has been estimated at more than 3 miles in height by the magazine that the insider reported. He read it 50 years ago, and I hope that that magazine wasn't Popular Mechanics. We don't want to hear anything from Popular Mechanics. They have bad science. And so does Al Gore. So I hope these two guys get together, James Miggs at Popular Mechanics and Al Gore, and I hope they form a conglomerate called Gore, Bohr, and Little More. All indications are that Planet X is real, but for me, the jury is still out. To convince me, I want to see it in the sky. I want to see the wave that's 3 miles high. I want to see the fire in the sky, and then I'll consider it. All we have at this time to convince us are the crop circles, which are warnings from various alien groups, the sinkholes, the shifting plates, the strange weather, the sun position, the moon behavior, the 10-minute delay of the transit of Venus, the heating up of all the planets and moons in this solar system. All of these point to the presence of a massive object nearby, and believe it or not, I'm not convinced yet. I'll admit that the evidence is strong, and so I'm willing to consider the possibility of a Planet X. While living in California, I lived through the Northridge earthquake. It was a 6.7, as I recall. I was 36 miles from the epicenter. It happened at 4 o'clock in the morning, and my bed shook like someone had thrown the house off a cliff. I ran barefoot to my sister's house about a block away, and I was scared to death. A loose dog was chasing me and barking ferociously, but I had other things on my mind. Frankly, I was running for my life. So when foolish people say they will hide under their beds, I know they have no idea what it's like to be in a 6.7 earthquake 36 miles from the epicenter. I can't imagine what it would be like to have a building fall on me and be trapped there for a week. They pulled one man out after a week, and I don't know how he survived. a 7.7 would be 10 times as strong, and an 8.7 is still not a 9, and it would have been 100 times as strong as the Northridge earthquake that I lived through. Apartment buildings collapsed right on top of the people, crushing them, trapping them, suffocating them. So in trying to understand what a 9 would be like, we take the 6.7, go to 7.7 and 8.7, and we still have 0.3. And the log of 0.3 is about 2. So you have to double the 100. It's 10 times 10 times 2. So it's 200 times as strong. When you're shaken and thrown out of bed by an earthquake, it's hard to imagine something that's 200 times stronger than that. The 6.7 scared the spaghetti sauce out of me. I don't remember if I got dressed to go to my sister's house or if I ran with whatever I had on. Anyway, I wouldn't know what to do if I was in an earthquake that was 200 times as strong as that Northridge quake. And that's only a 9. An underground facility is not safe. Even if it doesn't crack and allow water to go flowing in, even if methane gas is not released with the fracture of the earth into that chamber and suffocate everyone, the tossing about from a 9 should be sufficient to slam everything in that underground bunker into everything else down there and kill most of the people. And if they're not dead by the impact of whatever slams into everybody else, they will certainly be dead when the dead bodies begin to rot. And I wouldn't want to be 4 kilometers down. I don't care how lavish it is, and I don't care how much food they stored. I don't want to go. Let the elite go. Let the insiders, let the Nazis and the fascists go. Earthquakes are scary, and even the toughest guy in the world, Jesse Ventura, would be afraid of such a quake. Jesse Ventura doesn't seem to fear anything, but I think he'd be shaken by a 6.7 earthquake, as I was. I've already mentioned several factors which make me suspicious that Planet X might be real. I want to go through a list, an organized list that I made while contemplating the evidence of a Planet X. Number 1, earthquakes. I believe we're having more of the greater magnitude, and there are many ancillary factors besides the earthquakes, and I'm going to get to each one of them. When plates crush together, you have heat, and the heat causes volcanoes. That's number 2. Earthquakes number 1, volcanoes number 2. Crop circles are warnings to us. They are one form of warnings, so 3 is crop circles and 4 is other alien warnings. They tell us straight out, like the Zetas are telling us, a pole shift is coming, you will have earthquakes of 15. These are alien warnings, and I believe they are evidence. These people live 400 years. They have an IQ on average of 287, which is far, far brighter than Einstein. And I think we should pay attention to anyone who has a track record of thousands of true predictions that came true. Number 5, I also place faith in common people. When I place a Planet X video, I do it because I'm interested. And when I get 1,000 views a day, it means that you people are also interested in it, and that tells me something. I believe that you people subconsciously know what's going on. Number 6, the tectonic plates are shifting around, and we haven't seen this kind of activity in at least 3,000 years. Number 7, the Mariana Trench, which is the deepest part of the ocean in the world, is closing. The Mariana Trench is closing. And who went there to see it with his own eyes? Virgin Airlines owner and billionaire Richard Branson. Why would he do that? Because he knows something, and he wants to be an eyewitness to it. So he went down in a submersible. He's not the only one. James Cameron, the producer in Hollywood, he also went down in a submersible. They didn't go together. They went separately. but it tells you that some people in high places who know what's going on are onto this. They're looking at the Mariana Trench closing, and they did not tell us why they went there. And it's odd that these two people would do this. So I think that 7 is evidence. Their behavior tells me that something's going on. And if you consider that light evidence, chuck it. Number 8. Sections of tectonic plates are sinking or subducting, as it's called, and others are rising. Land masses are being torn apart, and number 9 is the result, sinkholes. When land is torn apart, number 10, bridges are collapsing for no apparent reason other than the land under them that was supporting them has shifted. One part went one way, one part went the other way, and the bridge collapsed. Number 11, the sun's behavior is weird. Scientists can't figure it out, and they're not allowed to tell you what they suspect. Well, I suspect it too, and I'm not going to tell you till I'm sure. Number 12, the Earth's magnetosphere is acting weird. Now, I don't understand too much about this, and I have not looked into it. All I know is superficially that the Earth's magnetosphere is not normal. And there's a reason why it's not normal, and I think some scientists know the reason, but they are gagged by the government. Government doesn't want you to know this evidence, because when you put all these pieces of evidence together, you come to a conclusion that Planet X is real. And they don't want you to reach that conclusion, so they're hiding as much as they can from you, and it's clear. Number 13, more evidence, the construction of a South Pole telescope. Now, if Planet X is coming in from the south, the Australians should be the first ones to see it, because it moves up toward the Earth to the plane of all of the other planets, and then it goes up above the plane and out into space and goes back where it came from, the Kuiper Belt. Who built the South Pole telescope and why? Why would anyone need a telescope in such a cold desert? It's the driest place on Earth, a deadly place. The ozone leaves everybody that lives there exposed to radiation, ultraviolet radiation. It's not healthy to live there. And it's very, very cold. Nothing can grow there. But they hurried to build this South Pole telescope to look at something. What was it? As long as they built it, I consider that evidence of something. That's number 13. Number 14, they also did a swift construction of a seed bank in Svalbard, Norway, as they did with other places also. Why the sudden rush to put all the seeds in a seed bank? Doesn't make sense. Unless Planet X is considered in the calculation, then it makes perfect sense. 15A, the number of executive orders signed by the illegal alien in the White House. And 15B, the nature of those unconstitutional executive orders. I think executive orders will tell you a lot of the secrets. All you have to do is read them and consider Planet X, and then it's understandable why the government sees control of everything in an emergency situation. They want you to think that it's the emergency with Iran or Russia. It's not. It's probably Planet X. Planet X really explains why they took control of everything in an unconstitutional manner, I might note. Number 16, evidence is presented by other nations coming clean about Planet X. Countries like Russia and Norway. They're basically telling us that Planet X is real and you better prepare for it. Russia and Norway aren't the only countries that are coming clean, and they're not the only whistleblowers either. Number 17, all the whistleblowers who have come forward, like those who claim to have watched NIbiru or Planet X coming in with their CIA buddies for decades, and they had access to the Hubble Space Telescope. Those whistleblowers are evidence, and that's number 17. Number 18, when we know the orbit of a planet, we know it down to the microseconds. And when the transit of Venus is 10 minutes late, it screams Planet X. And if you're a researcher, you need to look into this. This is either evidence or it can be refuted. I'm not going to decide because it's your research project. I'm saying that if Venus was 10 minutes late, then there has to be a reason, a gravitational reason why Venus was 10 minutes late. It's being pulled by something very close by. Within the immediate vicinity of Earth, Venus, and Mercury, planets 3, 2, and 1 in that order. Evidence number 19. Google Earth removed a patch of stars from Google Earth's sky right where Planet X should have been. And they did not bother to tell us why they have all the other pictures but not that one. They removed it silently, and I think that's evidence. If Planet X was not there, then why did you remove it? Number 20. Why did the illegal alien in the White House sign into law that astronomers may not tell the public anything they see, that astronomers may not tell the public about anything they see or discover in the sky, and that they have to report it to the Führer, the president, so he can discuss it with other Nazis and fascists and decide what lie to tell us? Is there something we should know about? Number 21, why all the executive orders about emergency situations? Would you consider that evidence? Number 22, why the underground cities for the elite? Why did they build them? What catastrophe could they possibly be preparing for with those? Why did they build an underground transit system that can get you from Los Angeles to New York in half an hour with these bullet trains under the earth? Why? I think the construction of the underground cities for the elite is evidence that something's up. And Planet X fits. Number 23. Why did NASA issue a warning in June of 2011 to their employees? If there's going to be an emergency, shouldn't FEMA tell us? FEMA is the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Why is NASA telling us to prepare for an emergency? NASA deals with space. Planet X is a space object if it exists. So why is NASA telling us to prepare and FEMA isn't? I figured it out. NASA deals with space, therefore the emergency is coming from space. I'm a genius. Maybe you're wondering if this emergency is related to astronomy. Take a wild guess. Number 24. It is a fact that FEMA was advertising that they wanted a contractor to put a bid in to supply 7 million blankets a day for 10 days and 14 million meals. Why did FEMA place such an ad? Because the New Madrid fault could give at any day. And the Zetas said that the New Madrid fault would break and we'd have a huge earthquake right after Japan has a couple of 9+ earthquakes. Now remember, the largest earthquake we have ever had is an 8.9 off the coast of Chile in 1960. And the Zetas are predicting something that's never happened. Japan will have a 9+. I think they said that we'll have a couple of them, and immediately following that, the New Madrid fault will break. And the U.S., the Northeast will go north and east, and the Southwest will go south and west. And the Great Lakes may, at that time, empty into the Gulf of Mexico, which will go all the way up to Illinois with salt water. This has been predicted by multiple people. I don't know when it will happen, but the Zetas said the Japanese 9+ earthquakes will happen first. Now that is a startling prediction because we've never had a 9. Never, except maybe 3,657 years ago. And immediately following, you'd have the New Madrid fault. By the way, those are 8, 9, and I'm going to tell you what 10 is on the Zeta prediction of 10. They made 10 major predictions. 7 of them have already happened. And number 8 is going to be Japan earthquakes, 9+. And number 9 is the New Madrid in the Midwest below southern Illinois and around Kentucky and Arkansas area. That's 9. And number 10 is that a huge tidal wave will follow that goes into the English Channel, goes right through, wipes out everything, and takes out the entire country of Denmark. Now, these are predictions in the future, and if they actually happen, then the Zetas are right again. They observed the last pole shift. They made copious notes and probably recorded it in many different ways. with many different kinds of alien technology. If they say something's going to happen and it does, and they do this 1,000 times as they have done, and it's all documented on the zetatalk.com website, I think people should be considering this a source for the truth. You're not going to get it from NASA or FEMA or from those who control the puppet president from Europe. So number 24, FEMA advertised for a contractor to provide blankets and meals. Number 25, why did FEMA build concentration camps all across America with barbed wire? Who are they intending to lock up, and what did we do? Those concentration camps are probably refugee camps, and they won't let us out because there's no place for us to go. We're probably going to starve to death in there, because I don't think they will be able to get food to us. When an emergency takes place, all the shipping ports are no longer functioning. There will be an immediate rise in sea level, and no port in the world is prepared for even a 10-foot rise in sea level. And this is supposed to be something like 200 meters that it rises. The Zetas have predicted the Earth will stop rotating, and that means all the water on the Earth is still moving, and the Earth stops suddenly. It's like a jacuzzi in the back of a truck, and you slam on the brakes. What happens to the water in the jacuzzi? That's our oceans. And when they wash up on the land, they have tremendous force. Trillions of tons of power hitting buildings, breaking glass, sweeping away everything. And the people would be drowned and crushed and cut to pieces by all the debris in the water. And if FEMA ever can get their act together and handle any kind of emergency, we already saw how good they are in New Orleans when that Hurricane Katrina left FEMA looking like the deer in the headlights. If they could ever get their act together and handle something the size and magnitude of Planet X, I would be really surprised. But the concentration camps are one way they intend to handle us. Now, if you don't think that evidence is strong enough, let me add one more thing. Number 26. Why did the government build 111,000 trains with shackles and enough carrying capacity for 15 million people each trip? Are these the evacuation trains? Is that how they intend to get everyone away from the coast in time? Do they plan to put 15 million people in concentration camps? I doubt it. I don't think there's enough capacity in those concentration camps for 15 million people each trip. They'd have to evacuate some 200 million of our 314 million people. 80% of our population lives within 100 miles of the coast. We all agree that 100 miles of the coast is not safe. It's the least safe. I don't want to use the word safe. I want to use the word risk. Within 100 miles is the riskiest. And as you move inland, it becomes less risky, but still it's risky. So where are they going to put 200 million refugees? I think that they're probably planning to rescue them when they wash up on the shore and they're still alive. Then they'll rescue them. They're hoping that most of the 200 million will die, drown, and that's the end of them because there's no place to put them. And every other country is contemplating the same thing, and that's why they're all so silent. They can't afford to tell you the truth. You'd move now. Number 27. Why were there buildings put up and then a big mistake declared and those buildings were lowered underground in Denver? Why was there an underground city built in Denver? Denver is the high ground. It's a mile high. It's far from any coast. The southern coast of Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, Florida, it's far from there. It's far from the East Coast. It's far from the West Coast. Do you think that these guys were planning to use this underground city so that they can survive Planet X? So number 27 is a question, but I think it's evidence. Why was there an underground city built in Denver, which is the high ground? Number 28. Why is the government moving all their most important offices out of buildings on the East Coast and into the new White House in Denver? Why did our government send Andrew Basiago into the future to the year 2013 to collect information about the Supreme Court building? And why did Andrew Basiago claim that he came back with water in his boots and he said that algae was growing on the columns of the Supreme Court building, and it appears to be under 100 feet of water in 2013. Makes me suspicious that 2013 just might be the year, and that people in high places already know the year, the month, and the day. All we need is the month, and we know when Planet X will arrive and cause the pole shift. Number 29, there is a lot of evidence around government behavior regarding how the government will house, feed, and provide medical attention to those displaced by Planet X if 80% of our 314 million people live within 100 miles of the coast. That means about 245 million people are going to be homeless all at once. And so if you want to dig into this and find out more, look at government's behavior and see what you can trace regarding the housing, feeding, and providing medical attention to some 240 million people, if they survive. I think the government's plan is to let the wave come in and kill everyone, and then we'll work with those who survive. They're going to claim that they didn't know, when the truth is they knew and they just couldn't do anything about it. Number 30, why have so many in the military, those who worked as defense contractors, and those who worked in government, why have so many of them come forward to speak of this incoming planet and the dangers? And why are other governments also spilling the beans on Planet X? Is that evidence? Is it credible evidence? If you heard it from one crackpot, that's one thing. But if you hear it from dozens of people in military, defense contractors, and government all coming forward to tell us that there really is a Planet X, and it really is here now, and it really is causing all these anomalies. Number 30, why have so many come forward to speak? Number 31, why are astronomers like the one in Chile being murdered? Here's his picture on the screen. He just happens to be one who said he cannot go along with the cover-up of Planet X because it's too important to keep a secret. And robbers picked him to murder. He went to the hospital uninjured, and he died in the hospital 6 hours later. That is, the part of him that was the cause of death was not injured on the robbery, but he gets to the hospital and he dies because of that. Look into it. There's his name on the screen. Read all you can about this and you'll find out that he was blowing the whistle on Planet X, and now he's a dead astronomer. And that's a warning to all other astronomers. Keep your mouth shut, or the CIA and the FBI will do the same thing to you. These are the two agencies that go around threatening and killing people, especially the CIA. Number 32, there is evidence that China built huge cities that are completely vacant. Nobody lives there. Why did they do this? Why would they build so many cities inland? They're not on the coast, they're inland. Why would they do that? If you inject Planet X, everything makes sense. They're completely vacant, waiting for some event. What does the Chinese government know that they're not telling the people? They too know that they have too many people. They know that many are going to be wiped out. When this wave comes in, it's going to kill almost everybody. If China lost 80% of their population, they'd have only 300 million left. That's how many we have, 314 million. So I think that the fact that China is building these cities inland and nobody lives there is evidence that they know something. And I think Planet X is plausible. Number 33, land is rising out of the sea, and this is evidence that there's something going on. Number 34, fish and birds are dying because of the release of methane gas that was trapped in the rocks. Now, you've all heard about the birds and fish dying, and the scientists claim that they don't know what caused it, but they could easily take a few samples, carcasses, and determine the cause of death. And I think they would find that methane suffocated them, because gases will dissolve in water, and if fish breathe oxygen, they live. If they breathe methane, they die, and so do birds, and so do people. So the question is, why are the rocks shifting and releasing all this gas? And why now? Why not in the past 50 years? Why didn't we hear about this as a natural phenomenon that goes on all the time? Because something large is nearby and it's causing the plates to shift and the gases to be released. That is a plausible explanation. Is it the one? I don't know, but I suspect that it is. Suspect, not confirmed. I would like government to tell us the truth about those dying fish and dying birds, and the dying fish and the dying birds are number 34 in my list. Let's move on to 35. Have you heard about the Indian tribes that say that the albino buffalo will reappear at the time of the pole shift? What does albino have to do with pole shift? I was curious, so I typed in on the Google Advanced Search, top line, albinos. Second line, the phrase, pole shift. And I pulled up 32,000 web pages that are talking about albinos related to pole shift. So 32,800 websites are evidence that albinos and pole shifts are related. At least the people who did those websites felt so. I don't know much about this phenomenon. I just know that the Indian tribes predicted it, and so did the Zetas. Albinos. Various animals becoming albino. Zeta Talk writes, increasing illness as the pole shift approaches. Emanations from the core of the earth creating albinos, such as the white buffalo and mutations in frogs and other creatures. Albinos on the increase worldwide. Relationship to the white eyeless fish in caves. These are albino skunks. This is a penguin in casual dress. Hey, where's your tuxedo? Nobody's allowed on this beach without a tuxedo. We have a dress code. Did you guys get enough to eat? Is your cat dead? No, he's just sleeping. Number 36. The sounds of underground construction of tunnels for high-speed trains between underground cities. People hear this grating sound. Number 37. The trumpet sounds made from the plates shifting. Various YouTube recordings play this back, and it does sound like trumpets, and there was a reference to the trumpets in the Bible. All you Bible thumpers would be glad to hear me talking about that. Trumpet sounds in various places all over the earth, recorded for YouTube. It's evidence because we never had this before. Why now? Planet X explains it. Number 37 in my list of evidence in support of a Planet X. Have you ever heard of the catastrophic theory of mountain uplifts? I was looking through my old bookmarks, clicking on them to see if they are still worth keeping, and I came upon this. I like to go to bed listening to something that burns up the rest of my mental energy so I can sleep. Otherwise, my mind is working too fast and I can't go to sleep. So I put this on and I listened to it while I dozed off. This is good stuff. It says that as large planetary type objects pass overhead, the gravitational pull will pull up parts of the Earth. It will raise up mountains. And there's a lot of evidence all over the earth for this. And if you look at the mountain patterns, you see that the part of the earth that was closest to these things is pulled up. And as the earth is turning, you can see the mountain range curves. All of this suggests that those mountain ranges were made in about 15 minutes instead of 15 million years. I'm going to do a video on this because it explains what scientists have been unable to explain. The Zetas said, if you see cliffs rising up abruptly out of the ocean, and you don't understand that that's sudden uplifting, then you're really not scientific. The Zetas said there is evidence that these objects fly past the Earth and do mountain building while they're in the neighborhood. In South America, there are cities that are something like 13 or 14,000 feet above sea level, and they have seashells on the ground there. How did that happen? I would like to see the scientists explain how that happened. These are not fossilized. These are seashells, which means they've probably been on the ground for 3,000 years or so. And some of the very high places in Peru were uplifted very quickly. They were at sea level, and now they're way up high. When objects fly by in space, they can miss planets, or they can graze them, or they can smack right into them. If they smack right into them, you could wind up with an asteroid belt or a Kuiper belt. when two large rocky planets smash into each other, they can break up and form fragments like the asteroid belt or the Kuiper belt. But in Mars' case, something grazed Mars, like a bullet grazes your head. You see blood, the skin is broken, but it did no internal damage. It was all superficial damage. Well, Mars has a scar that goes the distance from New York to San Francisco. It's that large. It's like a Grand Canyon. But it makes our Grand Canyon look like a small crack in the earth by comparison. This is really huge. And it tells us that Mars was grazed by something. Now, the question, was Mars a moon of some other planet? And it got knocked out of orbit by this grazing, and it became a planet on its own? It only has 1/11th the mass of Earth. 1/11th. So Earth is 11 times more massive than Mars. Mars seems like a moon. It's a large moon, but it's a moon. And I think that some scientists believe that Mars is a moon. Anyway, this is interesting, and I've been interested in Mars and the Grand Canyon there for a long, long time. The fact is that these objects come near planets and moons. They disturb their orbits. They pull some moons out of orbit. They cause catastrophic mountain uplifts in very little time as they pass overhead. The gravitational attraction just pulls those mountains up. Just like if you had some iron filings on your desk and you passed a magnet over them, they would jump up. Like, that's what mountains do. They jump up. I wouldn't be surprised if some things came so close that they even tore off a chunk of the Earth and took it with them. That's how Planet X acquired all this debris in the tail. It passed by, and like a magnet, it picked it all up. Now it's passing through here with trillions of these particles or dust in the tail, and we're going to have that rain down on the Earth. It's going to be catastrophic. So let's move on to number 39. I'm sure you've heard about the droughts in the USA. 26 states are reporting droughts. The Mississippi River is so low that it had to be dredged out. Why does it have to be dredged? If it's low, why don't you just leave it low? Swimmers can stand on the bottom of the riverbed and be above water. It has to be dredged because it is a major highway for grain shipments. They don't use trucks and trains. They use the Mississippi in the Midwest. The Mississippi is cheap transportation. If you raise corn in Illinois and you want to put it on boats, it goes down the Kankakee River perhaps and out to the Mississippi, and then it goes down the Mississippi to New Orleans where there's a port. It's loaded on a ship and sent to wherever it's going. The Mississippi is a major transit system, and so are all the other rivers in the area. And when those rivers get low in a drought, they have to dredge them, and they're doing that right now. So if there's a Planet X, and it's the reason why there's a drought, food is going to be in short supply. It's going to be difficult to ship. The prices are going to skyrocket because without a river, there's no cheap delivery of food on those systems, and shortages will prevail. Prices will go up. If you think food prices are high now, just wait. And what caused all this? Possibly Planet X. It caused the bad weather that caused the droughts, that caused the river to become shallow, and it caused the food shortages because of transportation problems and crop failures. Have a nice day. So droughts directly affect the availability of food, and Planet X affects the droughts. Now, if you're having unusual droughts, doesn't that tell you that something's up? I think it's evidence that could be used to support a Planet X theory. With the river being so low that it has to be dredged, I want you to imagine the worldwide transportation system. Are you aware that there are 50,000 ships in the water right this minute? And they're carrying all kinds of goods to everywhere on Earth. Food is going back and forth here and there. Television sets and all the things made in China are on boats. Big boats, ships, in containers, container ships. 50,000 of them are on the water right this minute. Now, what would happen if sea levels rose just 10 feet? Is there any port in the world that is not built at sea level? 0.000 feet above sea level? What would a 10-foot rise in sea level do to that port? The dock would be underwater. How can you pull into a dock that's 10 feet underwater? How can you moor there to unload the ship? How can you get the cranes out to unload the ship? A rise of just 10 feet would be catastrophic. For all ports in the world, all shipping lines, and shipping of everything would come to a stop. You wouldn't be able to get it into port. What is the most likely rise in sea level? Is it going to be 10 feet? No. 100 feet? No. Much higher. I don't know exactly. The Zetas are saying 640 feet, 200 meters. And that's why I got my mother out of Illinois. She's at 630 feet above sea level. Her house would be under 30 feet of water. So I got her out to Arizona. And I moved from California to Arizona because of what I read about Planet X, what I read about pole shift, what I read about sea levels rising. And the Zeta Talk has been talking about this for a long time, and their predictions have been almost 100% correct. There were some mistakes made, and I don't want anybody to send me those mistakes. I'm already aware of them. But if you want to throw out the baby with the bathwater, go ahead. I'm looking at their accurate predictions. I'm looking at a track record that's unbeatable by anybody in the world, and the Zetas have the truth. They have the future as well, and they're telling us there is a Planet X and that there will be a pole shift. And I'm considering that evidence to support a Planet X theory. But this rise in sea level means that millions of people were going to starve, possibly billions, because you can't get food into a port if you're 200 feet above that port. And I also think that when the big waves come in, that they're going to wreck most of those facilities, destroy them. Water has tremendous force. Now remember, the water depth at the equator, the ocean depth at the equator is 13 miles deeper. When you measure the diameter of the Earth at the equator, the Earth is 13 miles thicker at the equator. Does that mean 6.5 miles on each side of the Earth at the equator? It could. You have a research project to find out. What happens when the Earth stops rotation and there's no more centrifugal force to keep that water bulging at the center? Does it just sort of flatten out? If so, where does 6.5 miles of water go? It would swamp all of the equator islands. It would wipe them out. There would be a cleansing of the Earth that would scour all of these islands, including Hawaii, all the Caribbean islands, and the coastal areas as well. The highest tides would be around the equator. A 6.5 mile wave would come so far inland that it might put whales on top of mountains, and guess what? We have found whales at the tops of mountains, and their bones were all busted up, and they were various ages, which means catastrophic death. So if you're one of those debunkers who thinks that Planet X can't be real, think again. Because I'm laying out the evidence, and I forgot to mention whale bones at the tops of mountains. I could add that to the list. But there are a lot of things that I didn't include. And I still have dozens of facts that support the theory of a Planet X. But I haven't decided yet, so don't push me into a corner. Don't commit me. I want to commit myself. Think of the consequences. Those ports won't exist. Shipping will not be possible. Crops will fail. Lands that were used for the raising of crops, like southeast China, that's where all the crops are raised in China. If that's all wiped out by seawater, how are those people going to feed themselves? Is China stockpiling food now to feed those who survive? I can't live without bananas from Central America or grapes from Chile. What I really mean is, I can't live without fresh fruits and vegetables. Neither can you. I don't want to eat peanut butter. I'm certainly not going to eat hot dogs and sausages. Never. unless I have the choice between those and bugs, and I'll eat the hot dog with mustard, please, and relish. Do you have any onions? We are a very, very fragile society, and we can experience a collapse as a result of a dozen different scenarios, and tsunamis wrecking ports, interrupting shipping is just one of those things that could destroy us. How do you rebuild? The materials have to travel on ships. How many years would it take us to rebuild all those ports? How can we rebuild those ports without ships to bring us the materials to rebuild the ports? We have a conundrum here. If most of the ships were at sea at the time of the pole shift and the tidal waves, the tsunamis, those ships were capsized and sunk. 50,000 ships go to the bottom of the ocean. And all those people who have their sailboats moored on the sea, in the harbors, and a big wave comes in, you saw what happened in Japan. It smashes all the boats. And if you take your boat out to sea when you know this thing is about to happen, and you see a wave coming that's 6 miles high, I don't think your boat can handle that. What are you going to do? Go north and sail in cold waters? If you get thrown overboard or water comes aboard, you'll freeze to death. What if your boat gets slammed into an iceberg? Or just slammed against water and breaks in half? I've been on boats when water comes across that bow. You can be displaced from your standing position pretty easily, and many people have. Some went into the water and were drowned, and some were eaten by sharks and other things. I saw a girl dive off a boat in the harbor, and a shark was in the water and saw her, and he came up and met her like she was a seal. She went right down his throat. Have you seen that video? Shark eats girl or something like that? It was horrible. I would never watch it again. Poor little girl, 8 years old or something, she dives off the boat, and a shark comes up and opens his mouth, and she goes right down his throat. It was not fake. I don't have the URL for you, the link. Number 39. Anyway, think about the ports, because this is serious business. Number 39. We're experiencing floods in places like Indonesia and torrential rains in places like Russia. And Nancy Leader covered it in the past couple of weeks. I didn't read it because it's not interesting to me. I read her entire report and I skipped that part. It's on a video. But floods are a real event, and they're taking place all over the place, and these are really deluges. People are experiencing more rain than they have seen in all the years they remember. Is this a result of Planet X? It is evidence, but evidence of what? Now, the reason I say I'm not sure is because when we started fooling around with nuclear science, we didn't really understand all the subatomic particles, and those things are causing a lot of problems for us now. Weather changes and so on. And I think that the ramifications of those experiments and bombs and testing, I think those are going to be catastrophic to us in the future. I wouldn't be surprised if it wipes us out entirely. People who have traveled to the future says there's nobody left. The earth is vacant. I don't know if that's true. It's testimony, first-hand testimony from people who claim to have gone forward in time. Can we time travel? I'm just about sure that we can, because I don't think the Pleiadians would make it up that they took Billy Meyer back to meet Jesus. And Andrew Basiago says that he time traveled, and Larry Solar says he time traveled, and Al Bielek says he time traveled, and a lot of other people too. Brent Stillings, Obama perhaps, but he will never admit it because he's on the side of the enemy, those who control us and make slaves out of us, those who are parasites on us. He works for them, and he knows it, they know it, and you people should finally wake up and smell the coffee. Obama is a traitor. Nobody who praises Obama will ever be in harmony with me. That's why I rejected the Galactic Federation of Light. Seemed like they had a pretty good cause, but when they started praising Obama, I cut the umbilical cord with them. Go back and read all of the Zeta reports until you're satisfied that they make accurate predictions. And floods are something they predicted. Floods are something they reported on and said, see, we told you. And if you refute those facts, documented evidence that they said there would be, and indeed there was, floods. Number 39, floods. Number 40? I made a mistake. Floods is number 40. So number 40 is floods. Number 41, the sun is rising early at the North Pole, and the people there are speaking out about this. The people who live in the far north, some people call them Eskimos, some of them are Russian, some are Chinese. I think they call them Inuits. These people know their nature, and they know when they see the sun. And they said that the sun is showing up early, and that's evidence that there's something going on. But what is it? Did the sun just decide to come out earlier this year? Of course not. The existence of a planet X and this phenomenon are a good fit. Is it confirmed? No. Is it suspected? Yes. Do you have a research project on your own? Absolutely. You should not take my word for anything. All the evidence I'm presenting you can refute. Throw it out. Keep just the ones that you think are plausible and concrete, and then tell me what you think. Number 42, solar flares that can burn out satellites, computers, and even fry the Earth are now distinctly possible. Why? This is not normal activity for the sun. Why now? It's now because of Planet X? Well, Planet X would explain it. Why did Michio Kaku say, "We scientists were off by a factor of 20. These solar flares are 20 times as worse as we expected"? He didn't go any further than that. He's hinting that there's an object in the neighborhood of our planets, the ones nearest the sun and the sun, that are causing this. He hinted at it, but he didn't say it. I'm not sure that he knows it, actually, because he isn't being too revealing here. He says we're off by a factor of 20. Do scientists make such a mistake? Not often. So what is he telling us, Michio Kaku? Michio Kaku is from New Mexico, and he was in high school, and there was a science fair going on, some kind of event, and he was demonstrating his nuclear physics experiment, or whatever it was. It was a presentation of some sort. And Edward Teller walks by him. Edward Teller is in New Mexico because of the Manhattan Project, and they're working on the bomb. And Teller stops at his booth and starts to talk to this young man. And Teller is so impressed with him that he gets him into Princeton University. He calls up Princeton and says, "I want you to enroll this young man into Princeton." Now, you can go to Wikipedia and read about Michio Kaku. There's a lot more to him than just this announcement that we scientists were off by a factor of 20. No further explanation of why or how that could have happened. Why would they be off by a factor of 20? Because there's a large object in the neighborhood and it's affecting the planets and the sun. It's pulling the fires from the sun, and we're having flares that come all the way out to Earth. And if one of them scorches the Earth or ruins our satellites or knocks something out of orbit, then Planet X could be the cause of it. Massive objects in space have two things. They have gravity as an attraction, a pull, and they have electrical or magnetic attraction as well. The Earth will stop rotating because of magnetic attraction to the Atlantic Rift, according to the Zetas. That will be catastrophic. The Earth spins at about 1,000 miles an hour, I think. Well, if it's 24,900 miles in circumference at the equator, and a day is 24 hours, how fast is that? It's a little bit over 1,000 miles covered each hour. Now, if you're going 1,000 miles an hour and you hit a brick wall, that is, the Earth stops rotating, what happens to all the water in the back of the truck in the jacuzzi? It sloshes. And if you're riding in the back of the truck, you're going to get wet. And if you're a building on the coast of New York and a tsunami comes in, you're going to get knocked down by the tsunami. I have to say something here about the Pleiadians. They have told us directly, and I'm talking about Semyasi. She answered a Billy Meyer question about Planet X. And he was told by Semyasi that Planet X is not here, and it won't be here until the year 2200 something. 200 years from now, Planet X is due, according to the Pleiadians. And I have found them to be fairly reliable too, but I don't trust them completely. They look just like us, and they say we have a common ancestor. But they are way ahead of us in technology. When the Pleiadians say something, I tend to go with it, but not on Planet X. There's too much evidence. I'm not willing to give up the evidence and go with the Pleiadians on this one. I think the Pleiadians have lied to us about some things. I think that they told us that the asteroid belt was formed by a planet that was blown up by nuclear war. I don't believe that, and I've heard that from a few alien groups. Not directly, because I don't have any direct contact with aliens. But some of them have said that nuclear war did it, blew up that planet, Maldek or whatever it was called. There are many names for it. Maldek is just one. All right, let's move on to 43. NASA is issuing warnings, not FEMA. If there's an emergency, shouldn't the Federal Emergency Management Agency be making the announcement, warning the people? Why is NASA warning its employees that there could be an emergency and that you should be prepared for it? Is this emergency coming from space? Is it an asteroid or perhaps a planet? Is it a star and 7 planets, as the insider described it? Why is NASA only putting out a warning to their own employees? What about the dirtbags? Who's going to warn us and when? They seem to be taking care of their own, saying, you can't come down here to our underground cities. But we do want to warn you because you're our employees, that an emergency can happen at any time, so be prepared for it. This is a dismally poor way to say that a tidal wave 3 miles high is coming to the coasts, and a hail of rocks that could be as large as 500 miles across will rain down upon the earth, as they did in ancient times, and destroy everything. But be sure that you have some canned foods up here on the surface, and when the earth stops rotating and one side is fried by the sun's rays and the heat from Planet X, and the Bible says that 1/3 of the earth will be scorched by this heat and the solar flares, NASA advises you to keep some Band-Aids around the house that will be completely blown away by 300-mile-per-hour winds. Thanks, NASA. Enjoy drinking Hillary's piss down there. I hope Obama survives down there so he can lead you all to victory as he has done for us up here on the surface. I hope your elites who hire hookers don't have any contagious diseases to spread to the rest of you down there. I hope you can purify your drinking water that will have to be recycled, and I hope it doesn't have any prescription drugs in it. And be sure you take out all the fluorine because it's bad for your teeth and it kills your brain as well. And I hope you guys down there in the hole can purify your air that you'll be recycling. Because if you try to come up for some fresh air, you might find that all the atmosphere has been poisoned by meltdowns of those nuclear power plants that you built all over the earth. The food, water, and air will be radioactive up here, thanks to you guys down there in hell. So enjoy your stay, and I hope it lasts forever. Okay, the animation is next. And I would like you to see it because the tail of Planet X has trillions of fragments of space junk. And those fragments can rain down on the earth like hail. And I want you to see the animation of an object in space. And then try to imagine hundreds of thousands of these coming close to the earth as the earth passes through the tail or near the tail. And we get some of that stuff coming down on Earth. But imagine hundreds of thousands of these objects flying around. This animation will give you the idea of how these objects will each work. The link is on your screen now. Click it and a new window will open with the animation. And after the animation, we'll go to the next video and I'll finish the list. Thank you.